All right, so we're live now, and this is our first group meeting for the API team, and we're just going to be talking about the pet adoption application that we're setting up. It's going to be using ASP.NET and RESTful HTTP. So, all right, so we're actually going to create the application in Visual Studio, and I'll screen share that in a little bit. And we'll also create the default scaffolding, make sure it gets up on Git, and have that show up in Azure as well. All right. All right, so you see here's my Visual Studio. Over here on the right side, I have Team Explorer open, and the pet adoption API, I already have that hooked up with the Git account. So Erica, if you want to put in some input and let us know, where should we start now?
Well, the first thing I would do is we can create a solution in that folder. So we should just have to go to New Project. Yeah, and I would just, if you go to, where is it? Probably scroll all the way down on the on your templates. If you scroll all the way to the bottom, other project types. You try actually clicking on that itself. Visual Studio Solutions. Blank solution. Yep. And this will be the basically for any other projects we put, we'll put them all inside of this. That way it maintains the structure. So at this point, we should have our empty solution. So if we go to the Solution Explorer at the bottom, now we're going to want to actually add our Web API project to this. So if we go ahead and right click on the solution and add new project. And if we look under web and we want ASP.NET Web Application, and if we choose, yeah. So this is kind of the key point. So you see where we have Web API, just to the right of MVC?
Right.
We want to make sure we get that. You want to check host in the cloud on the bottom right. And I believe web app is the only one we need if we click on the little down arrow to drop the drop down. Yeah, we're good.
Right.
We will want to change the authentication. Okay, cool. It's set to individual. That's good.
Now, how about we go into explaining what's the difference between selecting empty and then checking these two boxes as opposed to selecting Web API?
Basically, you've got multiple different versions of the template. And if you take the empty template and just hit the check boxes, you'll add the references for MVC and Web API. And I cannot remember with the empty template if it will add any additional to that. But really, you're just getting the technology you need and not a lot of the default structure. So it's saving you steps by going to the Web API template versus the empty template.
Okay, and so from what I understood online, when you select Web API and you just build it and test it, you're going to see a web page already set up for you. It's going to contain all the help documentation for the default verbs that are set up in this web API, correct?
Correct. So when we actually make this, there will be it'll have like a little screen that'll just say, okay, this is web API, congratulations, look at this technology, thumbs up, yay. And then there'll be an API link in the upper right. When you go to that, that's a self-building out documentation for your API where, if you have a new controller, you add, let's say, dogs controller. It'll automatically add that to the helper. Any methods you add, it'll automatically list those as well. And so you don't have to go and do an extra step to outline what's in your API.
Okay. So I'll go ahead and hit OK then. And we'll see what the next screen, if there is one.
There will probably be a screen asking Azure questions, like, will you need a database? All right, so we have the name. Let's see, for our plan, we'll have to decide on one. So create new app service plan. We can name it whatever.
Adoption API sounds good to me.
Yeah, fine with me.
Resource group, create a new one. All right, can you explain what exactly is the resource group? What is this?
Well, see, this is the first time I've actually had to enter these. The service plan, usually that's talking like, are you a pay-as-you-go plan? Are you a subscription you're paying in advance? So I'm actually kind of surprised to see that here. And as far as the resource group, that's actually a new prompt for me. I'm assuming the resource group would be something along the lines of, if I had 2 or 3 web applications based off the same database, they would be the same resource group. So we might just call it pet adoption. I mean, granted, we're talking about everything going through the API, but it's not going to hurt one thing, one or the other. All right, now one of the big things is where it says no database at the very bottom. We definitely want to change that.
We'll go ahead and create a new server.
Yep. And you can name them whatever, which is actually, again, surprising because it used to be in the past, it would just name it for you and you had to deal with it. Oh, and never mind, that's database name, not server name. So this would be our database, so just something like pet adoption DB, whatever works for you.
Okay. See if I can move that off screen. You can't see what's being typed in.
Yeah, and we'll just set a username and password, make sure the password's secure, all that good stuff. And by doing all of this work, it's just nice because Azure will generate the database, generate the server, generate the web host, set up all the default configuration, make it so when you hit publish in your application, it automatically will publish without any other configurations necessary. So going this route saves you a lot of headache of trying to set up, all of that stuff after the fact.
Right. Yeah, finish confirming settings here, and then.
Yep. Once you confirm the password, you can probably bring the box back.
All right. So it's creating it now, and I'm assuming once we see this is finished up, we'll head on over to the Azure platform, and we should see it.
Right.
Showing up there.
Yeah, like it's actually putting it on there. Well, I mean, right now it's probably just making the project, but it's going to actually put it on the Azure as part of this process right now. Configure it, wire up the database, add your connection strings. And it even does the connection strings in a secure way so you don't have to have the actual username and password in the web config, which is always nice.
Yeah. Hopefully it doesn't error out.
Yeah.
Kind of embarrassing. But.
Well, I mean, I've had this error once in a while, but usually when I have it error, it's because I've created a project in Azure. I delete the project, and then I create a project of the same name right away. And that's become a known not good situation.
All right, looks like we're cooking now. I see down at the bottom it says creating Microsoft Azure web app.
Yep. So it's putting that on the Azure platform now.
Once I see that finish up, we'll go ahead and move over to the Azure platform and check it out.
Right. And unfortunately, sometimes it does take a few minutes. You know, spinning up a new virtual machine, putting on databases, so on and so forth takes time.
Now, I'm curious to see, because we are using BizSpark. And BizSpark, you know, that program's kind enough to give us access to Azure. We have separate accounts for each developer on the team, and I'm currently signed into. Oh, that's not good. It's because I put an uppercase.
Is it really?
Yep. Server name pet adoption DB cannot be empty or null. It can only be made up of lowercase letters A through Z, 0 through 9.
That's the first I've run into that one. And I always, as far as making it generate the, I wonder if it only failed in generating the database, because if it did, that wouldn't be too bad to deal with on the Azure side. If it just canned the whole thing because it failed, then so let's hop over to Azure and see what we got.
All right, I'm actually taking a look because I'm trying to see if I need to sign out and sign into mine right now.
Right.
And it looks like I am going to need to do that because the main account is not showing anything. So let me get logged in first, and then.
Well, here's a question. With your username in the upright here on Visual Studio, is that your BizSpark account or is that your personal or the other account you're conflicting with?
That's the BizSpark account.
Okay, that's the important thing.
Bear with me for another moment, signing in.
It's all good. I'm sure this will be a riveting watch for the next person.
I'll just cut it out or something.
That's all good. But yeah, in the event, it was just the database. We can fix that pretty easy. In the event, it just didn't put any of the stuff in Azure. That'd be annoying. Because I do not remember how to trigger it to just try again.
All right, it actually showed up here in Azure. Not in the main account, but under my account it did. And I don't see a database.
Right. We definitely know it failed in the database because it got mad at us and told us. So let's see. The best way to generate the database. Yeah, because I also don't know when there's a main account how it actually even shows up there. Like you have to pass it up or inherit it, or I have no idea. So let's go ahead and I almost wish I had control your mouse. Let's go ahead and click on the Pet Adoptions web app. Linked resources. Should be on the top. There you go. Because what we're going to see is we're going to see if BizSpark will actually just let us link, when we choose link resource, just let us generate a database. I don't know if it will this way. If not, we can just create the database through the database section.
All right, so I'll go ahead and.
Yes, create new resource. I was hoping that'd be there. So yeah, so we want to make a new SQL resource and all that. And it was kind enough to name it for us, so I'm assuming that name is safe. Probably just pull the web app part out of it.
Well, it's actually, I think the server, it didn't like the server name.
Gotcha.
So in this one,
And I don't believe you can drag that box, unfortunately, because it's a web app box. So you can either drag your entire screen off. That'll work. Yeah, like I said in the past, I mean, it just generated the server, and it would always have this crazy name that was just random letters and numbers, but no one really cared because you create the database and that was that. Brush your hands, you're done.
All right, and there was that checkbox down at the bottom that said configure advanced database settings.
No, we shouldn't need any advanced stuff. If we do run into down the road like performance issues or whatever, we can deal with that separately, because you never know what you're going to run into kind of till you build stuff out and know how you're structuring it.
Right. Now I'll just go ahead and hit complete, and I'll move the screen back over.
Yep. Hopefully this time it should not complain about it. And I believe we can add the additional accounts to Azure, like, through my email or whatever, so that even though I can't be added to the BizSpark because I already have a BizSpark, you can add me as, like, I don't know what the role is called for Azure, unfortunately, but the equivalent of admin or sub-admin or something.
Okay, it's giving me a little hard time there.
Just running slow, or?
No, I was trying to hit complete and it just wouldn't click through. So I was wondering, maybe it was probably the pop-up manager. So I turned that off.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, unfortunately, with a lot of the HTML5 stuff, pop-up managers just tend to get overzealous about it, unfortunately. Because they don't do the dirty stuff like making modals that redirect to other pages and all that crap that people try to do to get around the pop-up managers.
Yeah, it's not playing nicely at all. I don't know if maybe it doesn't like Chrome.
I don't honestly know, because I don't use Chrome as my main browser. I only use it for testing. So it wouldn't surprise me if Chrome had issues with it.
I'm going to go ahead and open up Internet Explorer now then. It's fun to find here in Windows 10.
Well, if you just click on Edge, I do know it works in Edge.
All right, I'll give that a try.
Yeah, I do plenty of stuff with Azure. Yay, and we get to advertise for Windows 10. Otherwise,
I'm going to have to re-sign in and everything.
Yep. Yeah, unfortunately, half the Google websites, when you open them up, it gives Microsoft a crappy experience. Half the Microsoft websites you open up in Google, they get a crappy experience. Competition.
I did hear that they actually are cooperating right now, though, to bring more open source apps to Azure.
Okay.
I was reading that somewhere. I don't remember what app specifically, but
Yeah.
I know there's
I don't know.
cooperation going on.
As a Windows Phone user, with the whole YouTube debacle, I don't have much faith in Google playing nice. Call me jaded.
All right, this is disappointing. This is Edge and Microsoft's online. I just logged in, and this is what happened.
That's weird because I know I've done that. Oh, wait. Oh, that's web notes.
Web notes, yeah. I'm gonna just search for IE.
Yeah, well, if you pull up Edge again, and you just go to the page, the triple dots on the right. Oh, never mind, you got IE, all right. It just made me curious, and I got right on my Azure no problem on Edge. That's weird.
I think I'm gonna give this another try.
Yeah, because like I said, I'm able to pull up Azure on my my computer without any difficulties. Both, I mean, I'm not using Chrome, so I can't answer that. But Edge, it came up no problem. So it's not Azure or Edge specifically.
There we go.
All right.
I still have to do this again.
Yep.
And I'll go ahead and move that off screen.
uh,
All right. So it looks like we're linked up. Now it finally accepted all the values I put in. So where do we move forward from here?
Okay, so now we've got the database attached, it's linked up and all that. It'll automatically generate all the stuff it needs to secure the accounts and all that stuff. But let's see, if we can go ahead and while we're looking at this, click on the little globe thing on the left that's going to have the web app listed there. Click on the web application itself. We are going to see if we can't go ahead and configure this so that when we push our code to get, it will automatically publish. You know, we'll want to set up a staging target and all that. So if we go down to about halfway down the page, it says publish your app.
Huh?
Add a new, yeah, we're going to go to add a new deployment slot. And what we're doing here is we're going to make, instead of just having nothing, choose upgrade. Since we have our $150 credit, basically we're telling it we're not going to be doing the free version. We're going to be doing, I think it needed basic. Yes, that looks good. So we can choose save at the very bottom in the middle. Yep. And so what we're going to do is we're going to enable having two different slots. We're going to have a staging and a production slot. That way, as we test and we think we're in good order to potentially go to production, we can move to staging, we can beat on it a little bit. If it holds up, we can move it to production. So now that that's good, if we hop back to the dashboard, I want to say it was, on the far right under quick glance, very last item, add new deployment slot. We're going to try that again. All right, it was standard. You were right, I was wrong.
All right.
Yeah, and we don't need to add any extra scaling or anything. We'll leave it. We'll worry about that when there is actual concern where scaling will be necessary.
Yeah, of course, because we can always jump up and back down depending on how much scalability they
Right.
need. I know they have premium tiers as well, particularly for the database side of things.
Oh yeah, you can get way up there in database real fast. So click on dashboard again. Third time's a charm. And we will name this one staging. And choose OK, or the checkbox. There we go. You are getting flooded by messages. All right, so if we click on web app, on the web application again, and where was this? Trying to remember where it was. Try under configuration, middle option. All right. We can go ahead and turn off PHP, since we're not going to be doing that. We can keep scrolling down. 64-bit, 32-bit shouldn't make much of a difference right here. Keep scrolling down. Eventually we'll want to get an SSL cert, but that's not an issue right now. Eventually we'll want to tie it to an actual URL. That's not important now. Authentication authorization. Try clicking on configure there. It looks like because we lost the database, it may not have set that. Oh, never mind. We can close that. That's actually going to be tying against, it was seeing if we wanted to put against Azure's
Active Directory.
Active Directory, which is probably way over the top for what we need here. Keep scrolling down. Keep scrolling down. Keep scrolling down. Keep scrolling down. Should get pretty close to the bottom. All right, so we can go ahead and save the changes we've made. I didn't find what I wanted there, but there's our stuff we got knocked out. So what I'm trying to do is there will be a place that you can actually control the deployments. So if we scroll all the way to the top again. Let's click on the dashboard again. Maybe it's under there. All right. Set up deployment from source control. It's on the bottom right-ish. There you go. And we are using, what was it, GitHub? Is that what we're using? Because I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Yep. More than likely, it'll have you enter some type of credentials. Then it'll have you choose a repository. And right now we are actually configuring the production equivalent branch so far as its deployment. I think ideally in the end we'll probably want a production, staging, and development branch.
here we are.
Okay, so yeah, we'll want to authorize that. Okay, so if we choose our repository name, we'll want to switch that to, oh good God, it's in there somewhere.
Should I use I should probably use my fork. That way we're not publishing directly to the Code for Orlando GitHub.
Right, what I'm thinking is right now we are working on the production branch setup.
Okay,
So we probably do want to tie that to the Orlando one. We're actually, so just to clarify, so we've forked the branch they've got. You know, right now there's effectively nothing there, I would assume.
In my fork, there's effectively nothing. I haven't gone back into the CF Orlando and actually merged any of the changes. Because we didn't have the default scaffolding, and I removed it because now we actually have the ability to link this to Azure.
Yeah, I would recommend for the purposes of Azure, we go ahead and keep the Orlando API for the master, and we probably want to keep the staging also point at the Orlando, because I'm going to assume that once you push your changes up, we're still going to be using the Orlando's pet adoption API and not the fork of the Orlando's adoption API, I would assume.
Right.
Okay, so yeah, we want to tie it to the Orlando one then, because that means when we go to publish and go live, that's what we're going to use.
All right, then I'm going to have to really quickly merge the changes.
Right.
That way we don't have any cluttering.
Right. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, no, typically I only fork stuff when I'm planning on making changes away from whatever it was they're doing. Like if someone made like a blog or something, I said, hey, you know, I can make my own version better based off that, or oh, I want to adapt something, then I might fork it. Otherwise, usually I'll just, you know, do other branches or commits or whatever, depending on the circumstance.
Yeah, when I saw that when I first forked it, I thought the same thing. I'm like, man, this is gonna make it really, really messy. So I think might just kind of consolidate everything back over to.
Yeah, because that's kind of what I'm thinking. Like, because then you would have to make your changes, commit them up to your fork, at which point I would assume you'd maintain your different branches on your fork, and then you'd have to merge those changes up to the actual Orlando original, and that means, okay, I want to change a label, you've got 4 steps.
Yeah, it was getting pretty annoying.
I can't tell you how many times I've done the same thing where I'm like, I'm going to break all these things apart, it's going to be great. And then 10 minutes later you go, I should have not broken all these things.
All right, I'm looking at the thing, and Pet Adoption API and CF Orlando is now cleared out. So I'm going to go ahead and leave this branch to deploy. Should I leave it master, or should I create a branch called staging?
Well, right now we're setting up the production branch.
All right.
So yeah, we want to leave this master. So it'll link to GitHub, do all the magic, yada, yada, yada. In the meantime, while it's doing that, you can probably hop over to GitHub, and we want to create a staging branch based off the master branch.
All right, so here's the GitHub account. And I'm going to go ahead and in staging, create branch.
Yep.
So with that being said, I'm guessing we're going to go back into Azure and do the same thing.
Right, for staging. Now what I'm trying to remember is how we set up the second slot, because we created it. but I've used their new UI versus this tool. This tool I haven't used in a while. So as you are looking, probably under the dashboard would be my guess. I'm going to quietly be pulling this up on mine as well. Well, we've already created the new deployment, the new deployment slot, so that already exists. So we don't need to deal with it. Oh, here we go. There's a deployments tab at the top. We may have just been looking at that. All right, that's just a log. Okay, maybe that wasn't as useful as hoping. All right, somewhere in there, there's going to let us set up another one. I'm trying to pull up mine super duper fast so I can actually look through this while you're looking through it. I'm looking at the wrong account, which doesn't help me. I'm still guessing it's going to be under dashboard, because you really notice there's been a whole bunch of these little better new version and all that. Okay, am I muted? Because
No, I hear you.
all right, Google Hangout is saying you need to unmute to talk.
No, I heard it blip a little bit, but you weren't muted.
All right, so you see where it says visit the new portal preview on the right? Up. It's like very top. I know how to do it through that really quickly versus trying to thumb around through here. That way you can have two really snazzy, incredibly GUI-rific pages up at once.
Yeah, I mean, whoever watches this is gonna have a good old time. They're gonna learn both UIs.
Right. So if we go in here, where is it on the top? Try clicking on the three dots there next to Get Publish. That's not what I wanted. Oh, click on All Settings. It's about halfway down the page. Kind of to your right. There you go. And then here we should have our deployment slots. It's 2/3 of the way down.
And we can add a slot up here.
Well, you actually see it says the pet adoption slot staging. So we can click on that. And where is the deployment settings here? So click on settings for this one. And yes, this UI gets super cluttered. I actually don't care for it too much. So, I don't think it's under deployment credentials. Try scrolling that all the way to the bottom. That's not helpful. Scroll all the way back up. And it might be under application settings. All right, probably not. Let me get this figured out real fast because I was juggling stuff. I'm always juggling stuff. Because what I'm trying to do is we will find the deployment stuff for setting this up with GitHub as well, just like we did the other one. And then it'll be super fantastic and easy once I find it. Of course, you want me to enter that password. All right, so let's get in here real fast because I know I got 2 or 3 projects I've done this for in the past couple weeks. That's the old UI. I don't care about that. All right, Moment Web. Deployment slots, staging. Where are you? You're here somewhere. Okay. Yep, you actually have your mouse on it.
Yeah, I was looking through it and I was thinking about it. I was like, all right, so up here we have the main app, and we clicked in settings. We went over to deployment slots, and we selected the staging slot, which opened up this setting page right here.
Right.
And I'm kind of like, well, let me take a look through it and see what I can find. And
yeah.
So we actually, I do remember reading about this. We want to set up continuous deployment in this staging slot because as we check in code, it's going to automatically update it, both on GitHub and in Azure.
Right. So yeah, and you'll click on that and set it up just like you did with production. The only difference being we point at a different branch.
We choose source. Is it going to automatically pick up?
I think because you've already done it with the other one, it should automatically pick up, but I can't promise because I actually run through Bitbucket, not GitHub, so.
Yeah, it automatically.
Excellent.
So I'm going to go ahead and.
You might have to hit the OK button at the bottom. So let's see, where it says choose your organization under personal, your name, you might want to see if, yeah, because otherwise you might see that pet adoption API twice, and that always makes it fun when you can't see any details about something and try and figure out which one's which.
Yeah, there's some nice things about this new UI, but I can see that this one didn't break it down as easily as.
Well, the one big complaint I have about this UI versus the other one is you notice deployment slots listed 1 underneath the deployment slot.
Right.
You can do the whole thing where you open the deployment slot within the deployment slot within the deployment slot and just continuously scroll right for eternity. And it can be confusing.
Yeah.
So that's the reason it's preview and not the real thing. So you should be able to choose OK at this point. That should be all set up.
All right.
Now the question is, do we want to go ahead and make our development branch now in GitHub? So that way you can check your code in against the development branch. When we're happy, we push it to staging. We get to see this work. Because I'm assuming, and we don't have to follow the structure, I'm assuming we're going to have a separate development branch. So as me, you, and whoever else makes changes to this, we can just make a change, commit it to the development branch, make sure we don't break code with other people, and then kind of move it all to staging when we hit a I'm not going to say a milestone necessarily, but when we hit a point where it's like, all right, we all have our changes in. All right, so now we've got a development branch on GitHub. At this point, you've already committed the stuff we've done in Visual Studio or not? Because I don't think we did, which would be fine.
Well, I haven't yet.
Right, I didn't think we did, which is fine. So we can go ahead and go back to Visual Studio. I think we're done with GitHub and Azure for right now.
Yeah, and now that I think about it, since we are actually committing everything through the main CF Orlando account,
right,
in Team Explorer, I might actually have to edit this because right now
that might be tied to your own thing.
Yes.
If we go to Settings, Repository Settings, you can edit that. So all you have to do is find it's probably just going to be the Orlando CF whatever. Yeah, CF Orlando is the actual name.
Yeah, we want what's in Visual Studio to go to the development branch.
Right.
So I'm just going to copy this whole URI.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know as far as GitHub structure with that. Like I said, I typically use one of their competitors, so it is what it is.
I'll go ahead and call that development, and I think we're safe to hit save.
Yep. So then that, in theory, should go ahead and take care of everything for when you do your check-ins and all that. So I'd say at this point, before we go any farther, let's just try committing to make sure that goes in, because this should be a default working, no frills to it, but web API.
All right, let's go see what changes we have. Oh, wow, look at all this. We have all these files.
We have changed all the things. By that, I mean we've added them. You're tied to the master branch. See where it says branch right above the text box above you?
Oh, yeah.
Just click that. Wonder if there's a way, yeah. So, all right. What you can do real fast is, I noticed your branches aren't showing. If you hit the little house, the home button above you, go to sync, fetch, and that'll repositories output window. So if we can go to the output on the very far left, bottom left, like all the way to the bottom left of your screen. Okay. Let's go ahead, and if we can, all right, click on where it says synchronization pet API, pet-API in the top right. I'm thinking maybe we have two different things going on here. Settings on this guy, repository settings. Okay, so they are the same one. That's good. Yeah, we shouldn't have to touch any of that. Solution error, or Solution Explorer. We can go ahead and try, and at the solution level, try committing again. Commit. And master probably will still only show master.
It looks like it's in the development.
That's interesting. I think maybe the URL we brought down may not have been right from GitHub.
Huh.
So if we can hop over to GitHub, because I thought it was kind of weird that they had like tree and everything in the URL name. And granted, like I said, I don't use GitHub. So if we look under here, usually they'll have like this is your repository URL you're supposed to use.
Right.
So, oh, here we go. You see where it says HTTPS clone URL kind of halfway on the page on the right? It's a text box.
Yes.
Let's copy that. That'll probably do what we want. And so we'll go back to the repository settings like we've done. So that's all it was. We just had the wrong URL, so it was not happy about it. Okay. So now we'll hit the home button, go to sync, and fetch to pull the branches. After, okay, that is a lot of changes.
I think what it is doing is it's picking up all the stuff I've done in the past.
Right, which is exactly what it should do. But I don't know how that's going to affect what we've done so far, because I don't really know what you've done. Just to be safe, let's make a copy of the project folder we're looking at. That way, if we pull this code and it totally hoses our solution, we can just copy paste it back.
All right, I've gone ahead and pasted that on my desktop.
All right, so that way we can see what happens. Da, da, da. So we can hit pull. And yes. Well, it didn't even throw a conflict, so that's a good sign. So at this point, we should be all up. So if you click on branch where it says master, and under remote deployment, we can grab the deployment branch.
Yeah, the development.
Yeah, or sorry, development. Double click. Alrighty then. Something's not right with our naming. Yeah, if you well, are you sure you want to rebase? Let's see. This is saying we already have a development branch locally. Okay. Yeah, so we've got something going on with Git on the local machine where it's saying you've already pulled it. I still find it very weird that it's making development / the name master and all that. That something is definitely not right here. Because it should be some like remotes pet adoption API, not remotes. Go ahead and let's go back to settings one more time. Oh, change the name.
To change it to.
Yeah, if we just put that to like pet adoption API or whatever.
There we go.
All right. So now I have development. And let's look at our Solution Explorer and make sure we kept all our changes. Boom, looks good. All right, so let's go ahead and commit this. Looks good. We can just call, the comment something like initial check-in, whatever we want to go. And just commit that bad boy. Should only take a moment. If you click on sync up there in the top right, and push. Or push or sync, either way. So now that's actually got that on the development branch on GitHub at this point.
An interesting thing, I've actually just looked at the page over here, and this just came up as we hit the sync button.
Right. So what? We shouldn't have to compare and pull requests and all that, I don't think. Like, let's just try. Oh, we're looking at the staging branch right now. Okay. Which I don't even see the development branch there. Okay, there we go. So yeah, now we should see, yep, there we've got our folder that'll have our solution and all our projects and all that good stuff in it. So at this point, if we go to the staging branch and we did a pull request of the development branch, again, I haven't used GitHub before, so this is kind of weird.
I think it's just a matter of picking the right base.
As I say, you're thinking we just had them in the wrong order.
Yeah. Yeah, so I switched it around and have staging as the base, and we're comparing it to development, and we're seeing now, yes, we can create this pull request.
Yeah. So yeah, we can just do the pull request, and there's merges and stuff we can do.
And then once that's done, it just hit merge, and I think everything will be done.
Right. And then that, or Azure should see that this changed, do an automatic publish, and that would confirm that we're in business. So whichever screen you had Azure up on, if we go to browse on the staging slot, so keep going to the right. See where it says browse at the top there?
Yeah.
That's not promising. The website declined to show the web page. 403 forbidden. Let's run this on your local machine real quick, see if maybe we did break something. So just Solution Explorer and then play. You can, I mean, right now you got set to Google Chrome. I don't think that'll make a difference one way or the other. It should open up its own tag or its own instance of IE. It's just taking a minute to build for some reason.
Yeah, I see it. It was down here. Had some activity going on, and I think it should be. It says build succeeded, so it doesn't sound like anything's broken.
Yeah. Let's see. There it is. And the 403 for bin could be we have configuration stuff we still need to do in Azure that I've overlooked, but kind of worried that maybe with our revert and all that, maybe some file got broken. Or not our revert, rather our...
Which is not a problem. I can copy the folder from the desktop over and just make those changes.
Yeah, and just revert the whole thing and then just put it in fresh. Okay, so that looks good. And if you click on API in the top there, that should be the the default stuff should come up. We've got all our creating accounts, logging in, yada yada yada. The values is just an example controller that has nothing of redeeming value. It just tells you these are the different commands you can use out of the box without any changes. So that's good. That does beg the question why the staging folder didn't work, or the staging one. I imagine it published correctly. There's probably just some configuration we've got wrong. So we can close this. Let's go back to the staging tab, or where we pulled up the example of the staging. Yeah, 403. Let's just try refreshing that page. Maybe we caught it mid-publish or something. Which would make sense, because we did fly right from for now. It has to copy the files, it has to build them, so on and so forth. And a 403 would be the appropriate error to throw if there was no application in the directory at all and we have directory browsing turned off.
Yep, there we go.
Yay, we were just too fast. Cool. So we now technically have a working API that someone could hit against the staging environment using that URL at the top. There's really no authentication to speak of set up on it. Like, I mean, we have the infrastructure there where people, I mean, someone could actually go and call our registration controller method and actually register an account. Granted, they would only be able to log in and do nothing right now because there's nothing to do. But we'll have to figure that out. And actually, for our purposes, would we need people to be able to sign up individually? Probably yes, we would.
Yeah.
Yep. So we definitely want to leave that enabled. I mean, maybe right now we might close it. Well, we're on the staging environment, so worst case, we'll just nuke the staging environment whenever we go live, so that's fine. So if we go back to Visual Studio, we're going to do something that's not critical to this, but for the sake of your sanity will probably be critical. If you right-click on Pet Adoption Web App, the project, go to Manage NuGet Packages, we're going to add a simple test client. So if you type in the search, simple space test space client, and I'm hoping that'll find it. It's got a different name, but all right. The one on top looks right. Yeah, that's it. Install. And are you familiar with how NuGet works?
I know it's a package manager. I haven't used it myself, so this is actually new territory for me.
Yeah, you can go ahead and choose OK. Well, the thing that's really nice about NuGet Package Manager for Visual Studio is say I pull down this code and I do not have the Web API test client. It used to be what you'd have to do is throw the DLLs and all that crap and move them from machine to machine to machine, which is what people referred to as DLL hell, because one person would upgrade the version, no one had the right version, and managing it was absolutely atrocious. Now with this, you actually won't have those DLLs as part of your package. The moment you pull the application, you go to build it. If you didn't have that DLL, it goes, oh, hey, I don't have that. I've been told this version, go get it. And it's really good at managing that, as well as the dependencies and all that. All right, so you see how it says the following test code into the areas, that directory. You want to take those two lines that say @HTML display form model. and you want to copy them. Because while this particular piece sometimes does it for us, I've found it's not very reliable. So copy that.
And we'll go over to areas.
Yep, you'll go to areas, help pages, views, help API. Really buried in there. That guy right there. And I want to say you add that where it says HTML display form model towards the bottom there. I want to say you add it right there, like next line or whatever. Yep, I don't remember if we keep that first line or not, but I don't think it'll hurt. Yeah, let's leave that there. Now if we save and run this, you'll get to see the test client, which is amazing and fantastic. You'll have to actually execute it. I can tell you, going from the days of not having the test client to having the test client when you're actually trying to test someone's application talking to your service is night and day easier. Oh, get rid of the help page, help API part. That's unfortunately one of the things that MVC will do is if you do not set a default page on the project, it'll try and load whatever page you're at. And with the way routing works, it's almost never right. So yeah, we go to the API. Let's scroll down to, you see where it says get API values? That'll be our guinea pig, which granted shouldn't actually do anything. Oh, what's this? That's fantastic. That's a new one. Go ahead and continue. We'll have to see what's going on with that. You know, I bet you, go ahead and...
I see it's asking for a test client dialog here.
Right. Basically, it's trying to actually pull it up that's not working. So let's go ahead and choose continue. I think I know what the problem is. If we go ahead and stop this, you know I said I wasn't sure about removing that top one?
Yeah.
Let's remove it. It also could be that I'm having you put it in the wrong place. It's one of those things you do once per application and then you never have to touch it again, which is why I love it. Nothing's worse than every time you change a method having to write up a big article on what the method's supposed to do and all that. It should be painfully obvious. API. Oh, crap. All right, well, we can just revert that. I'll deal with that whenever I pull the code and figure out why it's not going. Because what normally that would do, and this is the first time I've ever had problems with it, is it'll put a little test button in the bottom right of the... Yeah, when I say revert that, I meant, well, actually, you have the README text open still. Let's see what it said. Because I remember it was just add that. Okay, it was just added. So yeah. All right, there's something not working with it. We can just undo these changes if you want to right-click on the solution. And just undo. Yes. Yeah, I can deal with that on my own time. All that does is when you get to that help page where you're looking at a specific web API method, is it puts a little test button in the bottom right. You click on it, it opens a nice little window and says, here's what the JSON object or what the fields I accept are. And you can stuff whatever values you want in there. It'll have some defaults it puts there. And you can actually execute the method to make sure it works. So that way, if say like the iOS guys are saying, hey, we're having a problem accessing this method, and they're reporting a bug, and when you test it, everything seems to be perfectly fine on your end, you can actually put in whatever values they are putting in and actually see it run specifically with what they are as an actual external call versus running it with inside your application.
Yeah, I'm really interested in seeing that work.
Yeah, like I said, normally it's you just hit NuGet add package and boom, done. Worst case, you copy those 2 lines and you're done. But I'm guessing there's something like the version of jQuery has changed in the template or something is broken. So unfortunately, that is one downside if people don't maintain their packages. But I can figure that out once I pull the code. So at this point, we have a working web API. It can technically be called by anyone on the outside who should feel like it. You can call it using XML. You can call it using JSON. You can call it using, I believe, comma delimited. I'm not 100% sure on that. Key value pair. So you can basically just go to town. You can call it with whatever craziness you can come up with that's a standard. So at this point, we need to figure out what on earth we actually need as far as our various data points as far as objects being passed back and forth. Like, I'm sure there'll be a pet object that has all of its properties, maybe even sub-objects. We will probably have, the individual users will definitely be there, and those objects should already exist in their base form from our authentication. We'll have to expand on them, of course. So that's what we got to figure out now before we start writing any code.
Okay. Yeah, so essentially we are determining the resources, and those would usually fall under
right
here in the controllers area.
Typically, as far as with true RESTful API structure, each one of our controllers should correspond with a data point. As like the pets, for example, and you'd have the get by ID, put, delete, and I don't know, put is update, delete, insert, post. So yeah, you typically have those, and then if you have something like reports and stuff that get super complicated that don't follow your structure, that's where it gets not really RESTful. Grab all the things. So the objects we absolutely know we're going to have is pets. There's no question about that. We know we're going to have our users, and that typically falls under account, unless we get to user additional details, which I'm sure we will have, but I don't know what those are yet. We will have shelters, which will be another thing we'll have to deal, or locations would probably be a better word for it. Probably should be writing this down. Where's my pad? So we have locations, pets, users. What other details would we have? Oh, do we want to break pets up between? Okay, we probably want a lost pets. And I'm just going to say adoptees.
Yeah.
We can call them whatever we want, but I'm just coming up with the things. And then both of those would be a type of pet object. So we'd have the pet as the base object, and then whatever individual fields are appropriate only for one or the other. Users wouldn't matter one way or another. User's a user. Locations wouldn't matter one way or another. Location's a location. Can we think of any other things we would need objects-wise? I mean, we'll end up with more objects to support these objects, but I think everything will be based around these.
Yeah, I was doing a little bit of reading on as far as defining resources and figuring out the actions and the verbs. And one thing I read is, best place to start is to look at somebody else's API, especially somebody who has something similar to you. I mean, instead of trying to build everything from the ground up, you can get ideas from what's already out there. And, like GitHub, when you view the GitHub API, it's very, very detailed.
Yes, and I've written I don't even know how many APIs so far. None of them are in GitHub. Like I said, unfortunately, that just doesn't happen to be the resource I use. But I mean, we could do that for pulling down like what fields and all that we might consider, what functionality we might consider for, you know, the various things. Like the users, we have 99% of what we need as is, just because it's built in. You know, we'll have to expand it for like user details for all like the little nuance fields that we come up with, but for, you know, passwords, emails, all that we're covered. For API examples for pets, I mean, we did identify there was a bunch of adoption groups and that have APIs. I don't know how publicly available they are to view, though. Because I mean, we can break down to the various methods we need, but I haven't gotten that far yet. I mean, I'm basically thinking right now we create, you know, the locations controller. It just has the get by ID, put, delete, you know, so on. Repeat with the lost pets as well as the adoptees. And again, I actually don't like the name adoptees and lost pets for kind of doing this, even though they're appropriate. I feel like there's a better name, but that's me being picky. Honestly, I don't care. Because then that way we'd have the API calls for like the, let's say, iOS app, where they have the side looking for lost pets. It should only hit the lost pets controller for all that stuff, and it has no need to be aware of the other controller for any reason whatsoever. I mean, they'd see it, but they wouldn't use it. I mean, we can look at our API if you know of an example, or we can find an example.
Yeah, let's do some browsing around while.
All right. I'm just going to try doing a dumb search of adopt a pet.
Hey, you there? Cut out a little bit.
Yeah, I'm still here.
All right.
I'm just doing a search. I just dropped like adopt a pet and API, and I'm going to see if I can hit anything. It's probably not a good way of searching for it, but Yeah, all these ones are, they have an API, but they're kind of behind the wall type deal. Not that we couldn't get them, it's just we'd have to sign up, do all that stuff. And this is a dog named API who's up for adoption. That's special. All right. I mean, I've made API. Let me see if I actually have an API, because you're just looking for an example of not necessarily something that matches the pet adoption model, but just matches doing APIs at all, right?
Right. I mean, because we can pull ideas as far as how are we going to handle users, how are we going to handle pets. And
well, like I said, users we should be 90% of the way covered.
Okay.
Well, that's not a good example. I only have one extra controller on that one. Just gonna teach us all of nothing. That's a Java game. I can't show that. Not mine. Unfortunately, the only good examples I have, I can't show because it's client's code.
Right.
And it would not be right. But I'm like as far as setting this up, this is really straightforward stuff for us to be set up. Again, you have your get, that's, you know, your get list of whatever the object is. You have your get by ID, which is a singular instance of said object. You have your put, and typically your put, you will put your object against it, and it will update whatever fields are allowed to be updated. Delete, you just drop an ID in, and it deletes the record or marks or flags it as delete in the instance you don't actually want to remove data. And then you have your post, and your post is almost always your update or any advanced stuff you're going to do. And usually that'll either have its own object or it'll have the object that you're updating or inserting. If you're inserting, you probably just want the object. It's only when you get to the advanced stuff that there isn't really right answers a lot of time. So for us, like what we could actually do is if we wanted to make another controller, I can kind of give you an example of a run through on how we do this.
All right, yeah.
And we can start with, let's do location, because that doesn't have any real question marks in it, I don't believe. So we would make a location controller. Just the Web API 2 controller empty. So at this point we have, a controller with pretty much absolutely nothing going on in it. So we could create our default methods, and I actually could have had it generate them for you, but I didn't, so tough, I guess. But we can do our first one would be actually, let's see the way they set up their, where is my thing? Because I don't want to have to make you do this twice, because that'd be mean. The account controller is probably not the one you want to look at for examples. The values controller would be the right one, because the home controller is actually an MVC. So yeah, that's your structure you're basically looking at. For our case, we probably wouldn't do enumerable strings as a response. We'd actually return, the location object that we have not defined yet.
Okay.
So really the changes we would make is the public would be, that get would be a list of the location object once we make it. The get beneath it would be the location object. The post, instead of from body, we would probably use the location object, but not necessarily. That's the one that can kind of fudge around depending on your situation. The put would be the ID, and the well, actually, we probably wouldn't need the ID. You just pass the object, the location object, and delete would just be the ID. And a lot of times I actually like to not make them voids. I like to make them either bools or strings for the returns on the post, put, and delete. And the reason I like to do that is then you can use C# asynchronous. If you use a void and it throws an error in asynchronous, by default, it basically swallows it and you will never know it happened. But that only matters if we go asynchronous, which I would encourage us to do so. And we can tackle asynchronous later.
So I'm just going to go ahead and copy and paste all that.
Right, and I really should have had you set that up, but I think if I had you set this up by default, you had to define your object first, which we haven't done, which may be shame on us, but it's really not that important whatever you do that in, so long as it happens. So what we can do, because it really depends on how you want to build out, if you want to make it database first or code first, and both have their pros and cons, both just as justifiable. But we'll end up needing to define the location object to really kind of build these out. But where you're seeing, the first two will return data, and the other ones, all they're going to do is perform their action, and if it does not throw an error, we just, put a smiley face on the screen or whatever's appropriate, big check bar, saved successfully, deleted successfully. That'll all be done probably JavaScript. But all these methods by default will accept, XML, JSON, all that. You don't have to do anything else. The only time you have to do extra is if you actually want to disable people from being able to send stuff, and I see no reason to do that. So what we need to do from here is, if this is going to be our location controller, we need to create our location object. And while I like to make things probably overly complicated from what most people would, I'm going to try and keep it simple. So under our models folder, we will create a new model. New item. And it will be a class, wherever that is. You'll probably just need to scroll down, or click on Visual C# would also do it. Would take us where we need to see. Yeah, class right there at the top. It doesn't matter which one, they actually are the same one. And we can call that location model. This is not the normal structure I do, but I think setting up the normal structure I do would be overkill, so we can choose add. All right, so if we go after that first line after public class, we can go ahead and make a, I'm thinking about how I want to do this. We can just do public int space ID, curly brace, get semicolon set semicolon. I think it has to be lowercase. There you go. It should automatically. There you go. And then let's just make a public string after that in the next line that's name, and we'll worry about adding more fields later, but that'll be our example. I'm not sure I like that I'm making this in the view model, but when in Rome. Oh, for naming conventions, you typically want your publicly accessible variables to have a capital for the first letter. I believe it's called Pascal case. Because what you do is, if they're privately accessible within the class you're looking at, then they're typically lowercase. And just the same get and set. And that's, if you've not done that before, that's just a get setter. All that does is that builds out the code so that when you go to update that string from anywhere in the application, it can do so without any rigmarole. Because it'll actually make a private version of that variable as well. So we save that. Hop back to our controller. And where that first one says IEnumerable string, we want to get rid of string and make it location model. And that's why I actually don't like, is because it's location models is the name. Oh, actually, let's go back to models real fast. The location model, yeah, no, it is public. All right, go back to controller. I think we just had to reference it. So if you type in location models, plural, like you had it, and you'll just have to type it, the IntelliSense won't pick it up yet, and I'll show you why. And I was really expecting that to go ahead and find that model for us. Okay, go up under systemweb.http. Create a new line. Using space pet adoption web app. Yep. Period. Models. Semicolon. Maybe it's because I have resharper, but that should, yep, so our reference is good now. And of course, now our method is actually upset because we are returning something that isn't the right object. So if we can go ahead and where it says new string, get rid of string, and the angle brackets, or not angle brackets, the square brackets, as well as the, basically get rid of all the stuff after new. And then do location models, or actually, sorry, list location, list angle bracket, location models, and then you'll have to put 2 parentheses after the angle brackets. And so what this is actually doing is it's going to return an empty list of location models since we don't have it tied to a database and everything. But now you see that as a valid get method for that functionality. So what you'd have to do from here is we would have to build out where it would talk to the database, pull in the records, do all that sort of stuff. We don't have the data table set up yet because we haven't defined the objects and all that, but you get what that's going. So then just the same, all the other ones you'd have, public, it would return the location models instead of a string, and then the return, it would go to get the source. And the post, you'd accept the locations model to where it says from body string value, you would change that to location map. All of that to location model, and then we'd probably just call it location where it says value, if that made sense.
Change all this to.
Yeah, location models. Yeah, and that's, like I said, that's the one reason I don't like where we put it, because you'll probably want to change value to location, because value would imply a singular property versus a collection. But because like right now that post is only accepting one location, but it looks like it's accepting a number of locations because of the naming, and that's just me being picky. We'll have to see how we want to change that. Either way, that's not a priority right now. But yeah, so you'd see, and then you do the same thing for the put and all that. And we can actually, if we actually plan this out in advance, you can actually generate all of this code here, the scaffolding here, or not scaffolding, you can generate all this based on the based on objects you've created, but we're doing this in kind of the backwards order for better or for worse. Your second get there, instead of returning a string, it would return a location model. Because a lot of this will automatically build out if we did it the other way, but we haven't defined our data yet. And then we can just do return new location model parentheses. Yeah, and then parentheses. So yeah, right now that would actually work. You would do this and all of that would go, and just because there's no database tied in the back end and all that, you'd be doing nothing useful, but it is valid functional code. So from here, what we need to kind of do is we need to, those objects we talked about, we need to figure out what fields they need just on a bird's eye. We can add fields later by all means. And then we need to create the appropriate database tables. And so the objects I identified, if you didn't write them down, I've got them. Actually, I'll just drop them in the chat. Actually, I should be nice and drop them in the Slack chat as opposed to, well, never mind. We don't actually have an API subgroup of Slack chat. That's fine. Either way, people just have to wonder what I'm posting, and that's what they'll have to wonder. Let's see, adoptees, users. And everyone gets to just wonder why I posted that in Slack. Anyways, I put the 4 objects in Slack, which was location, lost pet, adoptees, and users. The users are already defined. We don't have to do really anything with that right now. But the lost pets, adoptees, and locations, we should probably make the appropriate data tables, like we were sitting down doing at the meeting. Right. We need to build out the database.
Right.
We can do that code first, but that is something I think if we're going to do, you're going to probably want to just sit there and actually watch someone do a lecture on code first databases, because I would need to prepare to explain that.
Yeah, I mean, we've actually gotten quite a bit accomplished in the last hour and a half, so
right.
We don't have to.
Yeah, that's fine.
Rome in a day.
Right, and like I said, with this, for outlining the objects, that doesn't necessarily need to be a collective effort to make that happen. That can be well, shit, we probably should go over that. Like right now, what we can do is when we decide to go over the database structure and all that, we can do that if you want to do it as a group. If you want to take a shot at and put together and then say, does this look like what we want? I'm more than happy to either, to go that route, critique and say, all right, well, maybe we want to switch these two tables into a union table or something. We can deal with that however.
Yeah, certainly. And we have the meeting coming up on the 1st of September.
Right.
Probably also something that we could do as a group because it's you and I right now. Unfortunately, Andrew was not able to join us in this room because for whatever reason, doesn't work well with a bunch of
Google or something.
He's actually watching this, but as far as the next time we have a web meeting, we may have to figure out another solution.
Yeah. See, I know I used to run Ubuntu. I haven't a clue what works with them these days because I haven't run in almost a decade. But either way, we can figure something out with him. He's going to be the determining factor in this one, which is fine. But so yeah, when we can get with him next, we will get the database situated. Once we get the database situated, we can just again drop in the 4 controllers we need, 3 controllers we need.
Right.
And then that's just, okay, we have 12 methods or 15 methods to wire up. Wire them up. At which point we will have a fully functional API, and then it'll be a matter of the different teams like iOS team, web team, and all that saying, all right, I want to be able to do this. Okay, well, we didn't have that. We'll add that to our list. So that shouldn't be hard. And because you got all this committed to the dev branch and the staging branch, so when I have some time, I will jot down a note to myself to do this. Pet adoption. I will get that helper or that test client working for us. I'll figure out what's going on with that because troubleshooting that over the phone would be not fun.
Right.
I'll get that working for us and committed. And let's see, is there anything else we really, really should do? And if I am feeling productive, I will make an example controller using asynchronous because it's not hard to do, but it's hard to explain.
Right.
And you can also watch tutorial videos. There's like a gajillion of them on that particular subject because it was the new fandangled awesome feature they came out with like a year and a half ago. Right. All right.
So basically, kind of closing this out then. For those who may see this at some point in the future on YouTube and aren't quite sure what we've been doing for the last couple hours, we are a group of volunteers. We have a website called codefororlando.com. If you visit that, you will see the link there. You can join us. We have a meetup group. We're actually a brigade based off of the Code for America Foundation, and you can learn more about that by following the links. Of course, if you look down here, up here, we have projects, different data sources that we have listed, and just a little bit about us and what we do. And we do have, ways for you to get in touch. If you're viewing this on YouTube, you obviously know that we have a YouTube channel. But in case you ever lose that or aren't unsure, you can click on the link down here. And we do have a meeting once a month. It's in the Canvas office in downtown Orlando in the Exchange. And it's a really great group. It's something that I joined recently. I went early on when the group first started out, but really just recently this group has grown to where we're getting consistently anywhere between 20 to 30 people showing up at each meeting. And actually September 1st is going to be a hackathon, so I imagine that'd be pretty popular. So for anybody watching this, just feel free to stop by, and if you like it, you can join us and you can work on some of these fantastic projects we have going on. This pet adoption project is something that we are piloting with the city of Lady Lake, and it's to help get animals that are in a shelter or in an animal control facility, get them out to be adopted. We're gonna have an iOS front end. We're gonna have an Android front end. I believe they're working on plugins for that blog. What's that blog called?
I don't know the name of the blog off the top of my head.
WordPress. Plugins for WordPress. I also know we are eventually going to be expanding this backend to be able to work with other APIs such as Adopt a Pet and all those other APIs. What we're kind of planning on doing is not only just listing it on our front ends, but having it be listed on other front ends. And when an animal gets adopted, the backend will handle all of that updating and will remove it from any other front end that animal may be listed on. That way we don't have like people trying to double adopt the same dog or the same cat or anything like that. But yeah, just check us out. And Eric, if you have any final words before we close out this session.
And if we didn't edit this, I apologize for the waits.
I'll probably go through and edit this a little.
Yeah, there's good room to clip out. But yeah, no, it's a great group. Just gotten recently involved, so looking forward to see what we can make happen.
All right. Well, we'll hope to see you at one of our future meetings. Eric, I'll see you in September. And,
see you then.
Andrew, I'll see you too. All right.
Yep.
Until next time. Bye.